Bonjour à tous et à toutes.
Bonjour. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. So my name is Yves. I'm working at Pure Storage, and I'm the Healthcare Life Sciences Principal there. And today we're going to present European Health Data Spaces, what it represents, what it will do, what are the expectations of it, and how we can help together, Nvidia and Pure, to make it happen.
Well, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Régis Dioulo. I'm the healthcare lead for Nvidia in France, and really happy to share some content with you this afternoon.
So, the European Healthcare Data Space, we are hearing a lot of discussions around it. I think it's a topic that is interesting for all of us. It's an initiative that has been taken by the European Union and the European Commission just 1 year ago. It was voted in 2024. And basically there's two elements. One element is the primary use of the healthcare data, so the patient data itself, enabling patients to access in a more structured and standardized format the patient data that they have, which of course will facilitate the exchange of the data, but still for diagnostic purposes. Today we're going to focus a little bit more on the second part of the legislation and the regulation, which is really the secondary use of the healthcare data, which is all about making sure that healthcare data can flow seamlessly, fluidly across users and also to the research and the healthcare organizations that want to use that data for that research. The discussions have been basically built upon the constatation that today accessing healthcare data across the European Union is hard, it's difficult. It's not a technical problem to analyze data, it's more a policy problem. It takes a lot of time, especially on rare diseases, to collect all the necessary data, to make it available for analysis, to make it available for research, and in order to basically make sure that this problem can be solved on a structural way, the European Commission has been issuing and is still issuing the necessary regulation to basically promote the access to that healthcare data, to solve the problems that we have with data accessibility, having access to good quality data, and also to use all the modern technologies that we're having in terms of AI, compute power, new models, in order to have breakthrough innovation on these clinical data. Now, it's the first one of many to come. We're going to have healthcare data spaces, but we're also going to have manufacturing, agriculture, finance, mobility data spaces, all with the same objective, gathering high-quality data across the whole of the European Union and make that available in a trusted way for analysis and AI. And I think it's important if you, and I was lucky enough to witness last year a presentation of Cleveland Clinic, which is one of the most luminary hospitals within the United States. And there you see that they are not waiting for regulation like that. These people are making already data exchange agreements with other big hospitals around the planet on a global scale in order to build the research and the innovation upon data, data-driven healthcare that is required for them to keep basically their status as leading hospitals and leading research centers in the world. And if we want to be surviving as a place of academics, research, and excellence, we need to give our hospitals, our research institutes the same policy tools to be able to gather the data and to make sure that we can analyze these data. Now, the benefits of secondary use, especially also for policymakers and regulators, population health management, of course, for researchers, gathering data to build better algorithms, to build precision medicine. I think we just heard the person from Novartis, and ultimately also for the patients by accessing all of the tools that we have and all the capabilities that we have in terms of compute power, infrastructure and storage and algorithms. Ultimately, also for the patients, it should bring, of course, the results and better outcomes. Now, what will be included within that secondary data use? Pretty much everything. EHR data, genomics data, imaging data, pathology data, everything that is really useful for building these European health data spaces. So it's going to be a broad envelope in terms of data sets that will be able to be used. Now, very important is that hospitals which are having the data, which contain the data in Europe, and think about it, hospitals will not be allowed to refuse to give access to their data. That's a very important shift. I'm a hospital, I will get a demand for using that data for clinical research. I will not be allowed to refuse it. So it will create, for the first time on a European level, a truly healthcare data market, where demanders of data, research, industry, pharmacy, and detainers of data, holders of data will come together, and there also will be fees for remuneration of all of that. Now, how will it happen and how will it be secured? Very important. I think the most critical element that you will see appear, it's not yet there, but it will appear, is the concept of the secure processing environment. Data will not just be processed within a hospital site, it will be processed in a very special secure processing environment where all the confidentiality, security of the data will be basically guaranteed. So the European legislator tries to find a fine balance between regulation and innovation. We still have to see how that will materialize in reality. Now, who will become an SPE and who will basically build such an SPE? On a personal level, individual people still will have a capacity to opt out on an individual level. Again, hospitals cannot, but individuals still will be able to opt out. And so this is basically what you will see appearing within a couple of years from now. You know, the legislation will typically start in 2027, so 2026 is still a year for preparation. You will have the data users, could be a pharma company, could be a medical device company, could be a public research company. They will ask for relevant data for the research. They will ask the Health Data Access Body. Every country will have such an HDAB. They will ask a permit to use that data. The HDABs will have a catalog of data. I have so many genomics data, I have so many pathology data, I have so many imaging data, I have so many, etc. And once they have identified the requirement based on the catalog, they will basically issue a demand to the healthcare data holder. For instance, an academic hospital that has a lot of digital pathology data, whatever it can be, and they will ask that healthcare data holder to basically send the data to what they will call the trusted health data holder. And that will be a new market. There will be managed services companies, public, private, that will receive a permit from the HDAB to receive that data and operate the secure processing environment. And it's in that secure processing environment that we will find all the infrastructure elements, compute, GPUs, storage, analytic tools, AI tools, LLMs, whatever is required to transform the data coming from the health data holders into new insights, which then will be shared with the data users. So this circle will start happening in 2027. Very important, together with all of these demands, there will be a fee system. These data users will have to pay fees to the data holders and to the TDH for the processing of the data. The data holders will get reimbursed for giving access to the data, for preparing the data, for sending the data, and the TDH will be basically paid for processing that data into a secure manner. So the whole landscape will very much change within a couple of years. And if you're a hospital, you could become a TDH, which means you have processing. You could just be a data holder, which means, yes, you will have to provide data access, but you will be reimbursed for all of that. or you can also become a data user. You can become everything. You can become a data user, a data holder, and a TDH, which really, for a lot of the research organizations, will change a lot. And for instance, these are the fees that are being provided and will be provided for the different infrastructure-related element. Régis and I, we are coming from the infrastructure world. We are presenting the tools, the storage, the GPU infrastructure, and you will see, and you do see that within that fee, the table of fees, there's plenty of fees. All of these costs will basically be reimbursed, which means we're going to have a healthcare data market. For the last 10 years, many people have been talking about data is the new oil. What we are seeing here is the appearance of a market for the delivery of that oil, with fees, with reimbursement, so that hospitals and others can really start basically valorizing all of that data. And everything will come together, indeed, in this secure processing environment. That's where the healthcare data will meet the new tools that we have and that many organizations are already using. And this will be the secure digital workspace where everything will be happening. Of course, you need to provide data security, restricted access, controlled outputs. You cannot just provide anything. It's going to be biases, it's going to be results, anonymized, that you have to provide. And in such an environment, they will have to provide the required computational power, GPUs, CPUs, the data storage, and also all the different type of tools, statistical packages, with probably the arrival of specialized SPEs, specialized on genomics, specialized on other types of pathologies, so that people can really go to that SPE to make sure that the data is being transformed into insights into the proper way. Now, who can become a TDH and operate a secure processing environment? We have multiple types of organizations. I think what you see here, they have to have a lawfully a permit to hold electronic healthcare data. So it can be hospitals, it can be public research organizations, it can be pharma companies, biotech companies, medtech companies. You know, I'm just thinking about companies making medical devices like CT scanners, MRI scanners. They can really act as a TDH and operate their own TDH for transforming, again, data into insight. There has to be governance, of course. It's very important. It's about accessing data in a transparent, fair, and non-discriminatory way. That's very important. So even if you're a private company with private objectives, if you want to become a TDH and operate an SPE, to put it as we just saw the person from Novartis. If Novartis says, I want to operate an SPE, and Roche, which is a competitor, comes to their SPE, they have to provide access in a fair and balanced way, which is very important. Of course, all the security has to be there, very important. Traceability, auditability, all these elements have to be present within such an SPE. Now, what are the advantages for becoming a TDH and operate such a secure processing environment? Now, if you're a public research organization, having an SPE means you can manage your data autonomously, tailored to your own research needs. You bring your own tools. It could be very interesting. It will facilitate the fluidization of data and also the collaboration across organizations on these data. So for many research organizations, it can be an excellent tool to attract talent, researchers, because the SPE is where it will happen. That's where data will be transformed into insight, and people want to be part of that. It will maybe also be a motivation to really implement the very robust security and privacy measures that is required to operate an SPE. Protecting your own IP, also important. If you have your own SPE, much more interesting, of course, to protect your own innovation. So there's a lot of advantages in operating such an SPE, but there's also a lot of investment in terms of having the resources, the knowledge, the people, the infrastructure. It's kind of an investment that will have to be made, and we still will have to see who will start doing it. You know, for instance, in a country like France, Will it be academic hospitals? Will it be hospitals like APHP? Will it be the Health Data Hub? Will it be CAD? Will it be whoever? I mean, there's a lot of the questions still around who will operate these environments. But let us be very clear on that one. The goal of the European legislator is to make sure that European companies willing to do research on healthcare data will get, in a much better, much faster, much more structured way, access to these data. So people that understand that concept can really benefit from it. Now, how can we help Nvidia and Pure Storage? Now, our task is not to play and provide the legal framework. That's going to be done by the legislator. But we need to understand, of course, that framework in terms of security, compliance. And we also need to understand how to build an SPE, a secure processing environment. And during the last part of the presentation, Régis and I will talk a little bit what we can bring together. Now, quite interesting, recently published TDAS, which is really a document that is describing all the practical implementation of building such an SPE. One of the problems that they see is definitely the challenge that you have in terms of infrastructure and provisioning it because of the high levels of security and the very specific nature of the different types of analysis that can be done. Now, that seems difficult, and it's also difficult. And if you're working in the traditional world where you say, I'm going to buy infrastructure, the question is, of course, what do I need? What will be the demand? How many data users will be? So for us as industrialists, it's really important that we start also thinking about how we can help people that want to build such an SPE. From a performance and from a storage perspective, it means that what type of performance do I need? What type of data storage do I need? What type of compliance and AI pipelines do I need? And how do I bring them into play? And this is where we have a couple of solutions that are really an excellent fit for building an SPE. And one of these solutions is called Evergreen, which is a kind of cloud-based solution for your data storage, consumption-based. And one of these SPE-enabled environments is really about making sure that we have a split between performance and data consumption. Now, it does not mean a lot for many of you, but what does it really mean? It means that me, as a researcher, or somebody who wants to build an SPE, and I don't know how much data I will have, and I don't know the requirements in terms of performance on that data, I can now have a very flexible model to start somewhere here with a certain data consumption and a certain performance level. And as I grow, as I see more and more data users accessing my secure processing environment, demanding more data, demanding more processing power, I just can turn these two buttons, a performance button and a data consumption button, to basically make sure that my SPE is well aligned to the demand I will get into the market. And so you could really see it as I have a performance button and I have a data button. And then I will get all types of demand, fine-tuning, training, racks, interfering, whatever it will be, on all types of models, LNMs, neural networks. And basically, based on those two parameters, I will fine-tune my SPE to the demand that I'm seeing in order to make sure that I can meet the requirements in terms of AI deliveries into my SPE. Of course, all the security features that are required in terms of security, privacy, encryption, backup, protection, all of that will be available. We have a full suite of solutions. It's not the place and the time today to go into detail of them, but we will enable the security and the privacy required for making sure that all of the SPEs can work into a proper way. And finally, from our side, so we have the flexible consumption model, data, healthcare data, and AI, which is the performance. We have the security and privacy. And finally, we also have the multi-tenancy. The data users will be able to access one singular platform, but as they would be accessing different secure individual platforms for themselves. And the whole suite of technologies to make sure that this platform is multi-tenant, which is then of course also much more profitable, cheaper, more effective to operate, will also be available in such an environment. But of course, we only storage. We are not offering the full platform in order to deliver and build an SPE. In order to build an SPE, you don't need just storage. You also need the necessary compute and GPU power. And this is where Régis will talk about.
Thank you, Yves. Thank you very much. So, yes, indeed. So what do we need to bring at the SPE level to secure the environment is basically in Nvidia, yes, indeed, we do provide GPUs, but what we provide certainly a suite of software that can actually enhance the use of GPU. What you see here is a Morpheus cybersecurity AM framework, which is a nice suite of AI-driven behavioral AI that we have developed to actually roll this out into a data center. So the way of doing this is actually to get AI to meet with cybersecurity. So what you can see here is actually a foundation with different layers from the AI-driven application to the next layers of different stack from Nvidia, such as Rapids, Cyberlux, server for the inference, and also the TensorRT. So it is actually our kind of philosophy in Nvidia is we bring the GPU to the use case through actually a specific framework. So this is what we do at the software level. But we also need to secure the hardware level, and this is where actually the GPU comes into force. So what you see actually on the right is actually a diagram, a GPU without confidential computing. So what is a confidential computing? It's actually try to isolate on a hardware space, to isolate the GPU so it cannot be seen by the hypervisor or it cannot be seen by the hosting operating system. That makes actually that when you think about data at rest, yes, data at rest is encrypted. Data in transition is encrypted too. But what about when data is in usage, is actually used at the GPU level? So that's why actually we build up an isolated environment where actually what you see is a different firmware that we are implemented directly in the GPU. And this is starting from the Hopper architecture, now on the Blackwell architecture, and it will be actually more on a different architecture going to come along. So basically, we got different layers of isolation from the hardware perspective, and they're all actually securing the data where actually it's in usage. This is very important because this is where, obviously, sometimes when there is an attack on a hypervisor, that actually can open up the access to the data while it's in a computing bit. We also, as mentioned by Yves, we also have the multi-tenant perspective with our software stack. So we've got actually here again 2 layers of multi-tenant. How do we actually partition the GPUs? The first one is a MIG. So it's a multi-instance GPU where basically it's like you have to think about a big warehouse, and we build a concrete build, and each concrete build is a subsection of this warehouse, so like tiny warehouse, and every tiny warehouse has its own lights, its own commodities. For GPU, it's exactly the same. We partition the GPU, we make it actually independent with its own memory, its own cache, and its all actually services allocated to that partition. And within this, to obviously mutualize the use of GPU through a data center or through the SPE, we can actually install VM. So you can have up to 48 VM per MIG. So if you take, for instance, an H100 80 gigabytes, you can have actually up to 48 actually person using 1 bit of this GPU through the MIG and through the vGPU, through the VM. Now we're just going to get a little bit what I'm supposing, what I'm actually providing here in France. This is the healthcare, which I'm very proud of it, and this is what actually we provide to the ecosystem. So again, as I mentioned, Nvidia is not just about GPUs. Nvidia is about use case. What we're looking at is use case. What we're looking at is how we can help people with their workload. And we have invested heavily. By the way, Nvidia is 70% of engineers dedicated to software, not to hardware. So just to tell you how we involve in this. And so what you see on the screen is the different subsection of the healthcare that we work on. We've got the medical imaging. We've got the medical devices. We actually started with medical devices. We've got the drug discovery for the biomolecular research. We've got the genomics. And we've got the digital health, which is something which is very trendy at the moment, how we can actually, for instance, enhance the patient record. And all of these actually are stack. All of these are software which actually enhance the use of GPU for getting to the GPU to the use case. And this is what actually we can provide within ASP, within a secure processing environment. And I think it does match exactly what is going to be the future of those health data center, because if you do have actually data and you can't do anything with it, and if you haven't got enough computing, that's just really archive. And no one is interested actually to use archive. So to really leverage that data, but this is what we propose for getting access to different use cases. This is, let's say, this is the journey of a data scientist. So on the left, you've got a CPU process, and on the right, you've got the GPU and CPU processed. So at night, we download the data set, we configure the data prep on the CPU, and then we wait for the job completion. So we wait for the data to be computed, and then we realize that we've got actually missing features, null strings, and we had to add missing features, and so on, and so on, and so on. When we add actually the GPU acceleration within a data center, all that stages can be iterative, it can be largely accelerated. And this is very important in terms of, making, enriching your data by being able actually to repeat in a very accelerated time the job of the data scientist. So we can text, we can test, we can experiment, we can deploy, we can reiterate, and we've got this kind of, let's say, virtual cycle, which is the data flywheel. So we can, every time we can retrain and retrain the data and really make the most of it. Now, what we provide in terms of, and this is actually, I would say, the kind of the pipeline route. We provide AI pipeline. So we start with data logic, extract, transform, and load with different application. We've been using our CUDA. So for those who don't understand what CUDA is actually not our interface for programming the GPU. And we use a lot Rapids for Spark workloads. We use different systems that can actually enhance data for the data prep. The data prep is key. Then we've got the usual model and training analytics. We have actually embedded many of a large language model or many visual language model, especially for the healthcare space. So we can actually work that on fine-tuning, on adding actually your own data for deep root escalation. And then we have the deployment. And that deployment is very important. This is where the inference actually is going. So all of this is actually building up from the Nvidia stack a system where from data prep to deployment, we can actually support that.
And all of this will be brought together in a new solution that Pure and Nvidia are building together, which is called the Pure Storage Data Stream. Now, the data stream, what is it? It's nothing else than a combination of storage, GPUs, and all the tools that Régis has been discussing and showing to you in the slide decks that he just presented. Now, in other words, what is it? It's an SPE. It's a secure processing environment. You will find the storage, the GPUs, and all the tools to do the medical research at scale, which is then really, and I think we're ending here, what we are doing here is really building a platform that is evergreen, very flexible. You move data and performance, very secure, multi-tenant, and AI ready. And by doing so, by 2027, if in a perfect world it happens, everything will come together. The legal work will be done, access to data will be fluid, will be present, will be massive, and together with Pure and Nvidia will be basically ready for being processed in such an SPE. And this is how Nvidia and Pure Storage together want to uncomplicate the SPE, the building of SPEs with our two companies. Thank you.